Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Yasmina Tawil, and I am the lead film programming curator at the Arab Film and Media Institute. I'm so excited to have with me here Meryam Joobeur. I went to do Arabic, and then I did French and Arabic mix.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Meryam. Meryam is the writer and director, correct, of Who Do I Belong To? An absolutely stunning film that will be playing at the Arab Film Festival, which will be taking place October 24th to November 3rd in the San Francisco Bay Area and online. Thank you, Meryam, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So just starting with the most basic question about the film, what was the inspiration of the story? How was the concept conceived?
Yeah, I mean, the journey of this film was pretty particular. I mean, it was really definitely a testimony of fate.
Mhm.
But originally, like the whole, let's say, journey started in 2017. Yes, 2017. I was doing a road trip in the north of Tunisia, and I met, by chance, these two shepherd brothers in the north of Tunisia. It
Mhm.
was a very brief encounter, but it left a strong mark on me. And I also learned that in the neighboring, let's say, large town, there had been a large number of men who had gone to Syria to join ISIS. And so I was really curious about this phenomenon because it just seemed so strange to me, this very rural place, and why would there be this phenomenon there? And so originally I did a short film and about a family from that village, or that area that was grappling with the return of their son from ISIS. But it was through the perspective of the father. And there was kind of this twist in the story where the father has these very negative assumptions about his son, and the twist is it's not as he perceived completely. Whereas when I was shooting the film, I got really inspired by this character that the son brings from Syria, which is his wife who wears the niqab. And while I was shooting the film, I was really intrigued by her and also the mother in the family. And I decided for Who Do I Belong to focus more on their perspective. But I also, I mean, I can't really pinpoint why exactly, but just this idea came to me that it would be interesting to do the opposite, where it's the mother is actually struggling to see the darkness in her son. And so I thought it would be really interesting if the two stories were somehow, it's this similar family, right? But
Mhm.
treated in a very different way. And you have this kind of yin and yang situation. But I mean, obviously, it's very interesting because I had this idea in 2017 or 18, but this idea of grappling with our inner darkness obviously has become very, very resonant today. Um,
Mhm.
so, in a way, like I feel like the story, yeah, like the film came out in a pretty relevant moment.
Yeah, I have so many things to ask you based on what you just said. But starting with, I guess, context for people watching in case they don't recognize your name, that the short film you made was called Brotherhood,
Yeah.
which played at our festival in 2019. So I think a lot of our audience will be familiar with it. The first thing I wanted to ask of many things is so, from the sounds of it, you conceived the short film first and then later decided to expand on that story, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, the conception was literally during the shooting of the short. I had the idea of,
Okay.
oh, this character, I'm watching her, very interesting, intriguing, and then the story emerged.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it just kind of came out. There was no, sorry, what's the question I want to ask? Like, I just, Sorry.
Yeah.
So taking that story and expanding on it, I mean, as you said, it just kind of came out, but was there any difficulty that you found in expanding on the story or revisiting what you had originally started on, or did it just kind of come naturally?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, I approach filmmaking from a very spiritual place.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like the stories or a lot of filmmakers or artists explore has a huge impact on their own lives and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. So I would say the biggest challenge was making this film is the themes are difficult and very challenging. And so it was challenging to carry that story for 5 years and have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the themes play out in my own life and have to
Okay.
confront, you know, let's say if we talk about the film deals a lot with this idea of like the inner shadow, um,
Mm-hmm.
and our inner victim and blindness and denial. And these are all things that I had to live in a very visceral way, not in the same way, but
Mm-hmm.
in a visceral way in my own life. So I would say that was the most challenging thing, but in a way, I had to live them to be able to portray them as authentically as I could.
Mm-hmm. And you do an amazing job. I'm a big fan of this film, if you haven't gathered. Um, Sort of going back to the conception of the original story, I understand that I didn't know this previously, but I was reading a bit. I understand that the boys in the film are the redhead boys, the
Yeah.
brothers, are just young shepherds that you met while traveling in Tunisia.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I would love to know the story of how you went back and found them and convinced them to be in not one but two films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that has been or one of the most enriching experiences is my collaboration with Malik, Shekhar, and Rayan. Um, and yeah, like the first moment I met first Malik and Shekhar for literally 2 minutes. I didn't know their names. I just was intrigued by their faces. And so when I decided to write the script, I mean, they stayed in my mind. That's what's so strange about the story. And I actually enjoy saying this story because it kind of reminds me that sometimes, and it's a good moment for me to remember that of like letting go of control, you know, like fate. And sometimes things are just meant to be. And so I kind of met them for 2 minutes and this story popped into my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so luckily my cinematographer was with me, my dear friend, and he was also very excited. He had seen them, he loved the story. So the next, like a year later, we went back looking for them. And it was a bit of like finding a needle in a haystack, but
Mm-hmm.
we managed to find them. And initially they were a bit reluctant because it was a very strange situation. But, you know, I told them I'll be back in 6 months and you have time to think about it. And when I came back, I met the family and the father, and um, you know, we managed to reassure them that we were legitimate, like it wasn't some kind of weird plot. And so they agreed, and yeah, like it was all very unexpected that how it would lead into the feature film. For the feature film, you know, we ended up working together a lot to prepare, you know, because for the short, it was a bit more like everything happened quickly and I based the characters on their own personalities. But for the feature, we really had to rehearse and they trained a lot
Mm-hmm.
with the lead actress, Salha Nasrawi, so that they learned some acting techniques to be able to take on the feature film.
They do an amazing job. I would not have guessed that they were not actors prior to reading that. Do you think they'll act again, or is this just for you, just for this story?
I mean, I would say like they definitely fell in love with acting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more like if an opportunity comes that's right
Yeah.
and the conditions are right, then I think they would be happy to do it. It's that's like the tricky thing. I think the film industry is very challenging. So like, I wouldn't want them to dive into it and not have any tools or knowledge of what to expect.
Yeah.
But
That's
I'm there to
understandable.
support them. If they're interested and there's an interesting project, I'm there to support
Mhm.
them in that and following that.
Yeah. Did they have any influence on your writing or the story, like the creation of the story at all,
Yeah,
beyond the inspiration?
no, they did. I mean, for Brotherhood, I mean, literally their own personalities inspired the characters. I adapted that to them.
Mhm.
For the feature, all the actors, like especially all the actor, the way that I usually work is um, I don't cast actors wanting them to fit into a role.
Mhm.
Kind of the other way around is like I cast actors whose persons will inspire the character, or there's an aspect of their personality that I can see translating to the character.
Mhm.
So I was really happy to have Salha, Mohammed, Malik Sheikh, or Rayan already in my head when I was writing the feature, because I could visualize them and I could be inspired by who they were, aspects of who they were. So I usually work like that. It's really the people inspire the story.
Mhm. Um, Going back a little bit to talking about the inner shadow and the concepts in the feature, the concepts that the mother struggles with. I want to talk about the use of magical realism to get those to the audience. In general, expressing emotion in film. I mean, there's many ways you can do it, but I think the depth of the emotion you were trying to tell the audience, to express to the audience, needed something more than just a look on a face or a line said aloud. If I'm not incorrect, was that part of the reason to moving that way, or was there something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in this regard, initially it came naturally, but also I feel like because I went on such a big spiritual journey on making this film, a lot of my journey was about connecting to the subconscious. So dreams, hypnosis, this type of language or way of healing was like super fundamental for me or important. So
Mhm.
as I was exploring those possibilities, it kind of transferred more and more into the film. And also, like in the north of Tunisia, I think initially the idea now, if I remember, is like in the north of Tunisia, there is a belief in magic. The people in the village where we shot, they definitely believe in, um, you know, coffee readings or or well, coffee readings was also especially from my own family or people I met in Tunis, but this idea that, there's a spirit realm and that spirits can come back and there is, benevolent spirits and there's maybe more malicious ones, but they
Mhm.
really believe it. So what I've been saying a lot is it's funny because of course it's easy for us to name it as magical realism, but
Mhm.
when it's the lived truth of people, is it really magical realism or is it just their reality, like,
Yeah.
and the more and more I feel it like it's their reality because they truly believe it and their lives are they live their lives as if it's true, and I live my life as if dream language and connecting with the
Mhm.
subconscious um, is very much as real to me as, let's say, waking life. So
Yeah.
I think that's how it all kind of came into the film.
Yeah. that makes complete sense. Yeah, it's not necessarily, it's maybe magical realism for those of us in the West, but to them it's just reality. But I think it also effectively like really shows like a different depth of understanding and emotion of what the mother is going through.
Definitely.
I love both Who Do I Belong To and Brotherhood. Obviously, they are, you know, the same story in many regards. But I love this nuanced look at the effects of extremism and like how people get wrapped up in that. And I read in another interview that you wanted to make this film more universal than about just Islamic extremism. I would love to talk more about that and the concept, especially of connecting it to other forms of extremism and fanaticism and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reflections I've had on this topic. And obviously, I think, you know, some things evolve, some things stay true. But the feeling that I had is it really comes back to this universal idea of like the fact that there is a shadow within all of us, or the potential of a shadow. And I think this is very hard for most of us to accept, and it was very hard for me to accept. So it was something, you know, I tried to repress within myself because I had wanted to give the image of being, you know, like I guess like a good person, a good daughter, a good thing, you know, somebody who's always bringing harmony, all these things. But, you know, around the time I was making the film, I also realized like the impacts of repression and how like even within myself I could see extreme emotions wanting to emerge. And it made me a bit more, I guess, compassionate or aware that, you know, a lot of the people we see in the news doing extreme acts, it could be very much related to them not facing things within themselves. And the feeling or the frustration I had, it's frustration, but also acknowledgement that I feel like in society, we like to label things and simplify things. And I feel like it's just making us on a wider scale just repeat the same mistakes over and over again, because we're like, oh, religious extremism, it's a Muslim problem, you know, like we try to like, oh, it's the Muslims that have this problem, it's innate in them. But no, it's something that we've seen throughout history: genocide, violence, extreme acts of, you know, violence have happened within any culture, within any time in history, within any why, you know. I think for me, as the thing that I've always been intrigued on is like that question of why. And that's what I've always been trying to explore. And I think it's important to explore. And I don't necessarily think I have the right answer, but I'm exploring it. And I want to go deeper into it. And right now, the belief that I have is just how important it is to look within ourselves, to start from there. Because I think there's this kind of, and I'm guilty of it too, is this obsession of trying to fix problems outside of us all the time. But I really feel like it starts from inside, then trickles out to your close relationships, then maybe it trickles out to community, and then maybe it starts from within and then trickles out. So I think that's what I was aiming to do, you know, like at least with the film, like start a conversation around that.
Yeah, I think it's such an important conversation to have because people, like you said, people are so black and white too, especially about people who make this choice to join any sort of extremist religion or faction. And And a lot of times it comes from places of vulnerability, of looking for belonging, of wanting to help either yourself or other people that just happens to be misguided or or you misunderstand what you're getting into. So I think it's so important that we have these conversations and not, just blanketly demonize people.
I think in regards, there is responsibility, right? Like,
of course, yeah.
Both not denouncing the fact that there is, when somebody does an extreme act, harm somebody else, they are responsible, because they're responsible for not confronting their inner shadow, and they are responsible for harming somebody else. It's more like, if we want to, how do we solve this ongoing problem? That I think that's the investigation, right? Is like, what are the roots? And you pointed, the sense of wanting to belong is such a human drive. And unfortunately, some organizations, even like cults, like just in the US, there's been a lot of cases of cults. You have people who are able to manipulate that wanting to belong.
Every time you hear a survivor story about a cult, it's always, I was looking for something, a community. I was searching for, spirituality and religion, and I saw a flyer, and they happened to sit in the class of the most charismatic man in, Los Angeles or whatever.
Exactly.
Moving to a little bit out of left field, I am personally such a visual person. So my immediate the immediate thing I notice in your film is the visuals. I absolutely adore the shots of the landscapes in northern Tunisia, the color choice. I would love to just pick your brain about what inspired it. I mean, obviously the natural landscape of Tunisia, but how you chose to incorporate that and how you chose to show it to us, because it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, for this, I have to of course, like, my longest creative collaborator, his name is Vincent Gunville. He's a cinematographer, and we met in film school. So we've been making films together for it's crazy to say over a decade now. I get to say that phrase now. Over a decade.
You are seasoned.
That's hilarious. So over a decade I've been working with Vinny, and I mean, we're very collaborative, and we both on that road trip fell in love with that place, that village. What we loved is that in this very small area, you had such diversity. You had like cliffs, ocean, forests, fields, like the light, the feeling of the energy of the ocean. It was all like very special, and we really wanted to try to see if we can we transmit that feeling in image. And obviously sound was a big part of it. But we're very focused on that. So for years we were thinking about it. And the way that we love to work is actually with still photography. So we do like a huge collection of images that inspire us. And we just like share these images, and usually, an image will inspire even a scene, or, and we're trying to find. For this, we kind of knew that, or my desire was to like stay close to the characters and treat the nature as another character.
Okay.
That was kind of what I was aiming, is like, how can the landscape also invoke the inner lives of the characters? So that was kind of the broad thing. And then somehow over conversations over the years, we managed to get to what you see in the film.
Yeah, well, I turned out amazing. It's clear that there's a lot of thought and care put into those images, and it definitely, yeah, it adds something so special to it. I hadn't thought of it as another character, but I can see that entirely. And it, yeah, reflects everything that's going on, especially that cliff and the ocean. Um, well, I think we can sort of wrap it up there. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to leave us with that we should know about the film, or anything we should look forward to.
I mean, for me, it's really this idea of this film is a conversation. So there is no particularly right or wrong way to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my invitation to the audience is to, yeah, have a conversation and a dialogue about it, and have fun with like trying to decode the mystery of it as well. You know, sometimes we get a bit frustrated when something is not 100% clear, but have fun with the mystery and be playful with it as well, I would say.
I love that. And I look forward to having those conversations with our audience at the festival.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Meryam. I appreciate you sitting down with me today and giving us a little bit of your time and your insight into the film.
Of course. Thank you so much, and have a great screening.